I am really struggling with a statistic that I read this morning because I'm kind of old school here and I hear my dad in my head also. And I'm trying to reframe reality now for the younger generation that is depending on their parents more now after they graduate. So here's the stat. 50% of parents now with adult kids now provide financial support. This is a big old report that came out this morning. Parents are shelling out about an average of almost $1,500 monthly.
A month
to assist young adults with their expenses, stuff like healthcare and rent and education. And it's reflecting the financial challenges that are being faced by Gen Z and millennials now. And I'm so stuck in my head about this that I've maintained my whole life, sort of my dad's. Well, there was never an option for me to go back home. I was sort of kicked out of my house, but they were paying my rent. I mean, was I really kicked out? They kicked me out of the house, but they said they were going to be paying for my rent at school. And at first I was so offended they were kicking me out. And then I thought about it. I'm like, this is awesome. I don't have to be at home with my dad and my mom, and they're paying for my rent. But there was never an option in my head that if I was struggling, that it was comfortable enough to go home and ask my parents to take care of me in college and when I left college also. It would have been such a disappointment to my dad that I was still asking for help after college or during college, that it just wasn't a possibility for me. So as my kids are growing up now, and I've got one that's on the cusp of graduating college here in just a couple of weeks. You don't have anything lined up right now. I'm really trying to get my dad's mentality out of my head that it won't be disappointing if we have to help out here a little bit. I'm a big fan of grit and trying to figure out things by yourself, but things have just changed, I think. Or have they? Or does every generation say this?
I mean, from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like your situation is that much different than like what I experienced when I went to college. Like my parents paid my rent when I went to college, which I'm really, really grateful for. And at the same time, like they didn't really allow me to go back home, but they said, if this is what you need for 6 months, you know, you get 6 months at home, but then you've still got to go. So
they were putting like a deadline on it. Like, hey, we're going to be disappointed, but you got 6 months and we're going to help you get on your feet and then you're out of here.
It was it was more of an unspoken thing. Like your dad is really sick of you living here. I'll be like, okay, I'll figure it out. Because I was just trying to ride it out as long as possible. Because I knew once I left, I wouldn't go back. And then I did go back. I think it's just one of those things that if your parents are in a financial position where they can and they love you, I don't understand why they wouldn't to an extent.
Well, those are two different things.
Yeah.
So I wanted to really delve into the article that you pulled from NBC News. Because, I mean, obviously, there's a reason why this number is so high. Like 1 in 3 adults ages 18 to 34 live in their parents' home.
What was it like? Well, I wonder what that statistic was 20 years ago. Did it say that in the article?
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to like get to. Like, so, you know, I'm a fan of the question why. And so from this article, and they have hyperlinks over there. In addition to soaring everyday expenses, housing costs, millennials and Gen Z face other financial challenges that their parents did not at that age. So if you want to crunch the numbers, it is more expensive for Gen Z and millennials. So it's not a fair comparison to like in my day, because in your day, the costs weren't the same.
Right. 1-855-BERT show if you want to get in on this.
Yeah, you can't afford an apartment in the United States on minimum wage. And unfortunately, costs have skyrocketed, but paychecks have not done the same thing. And I also think there's such a stigma in the U.S. around I think there's a different conversation between getting help, financial help from your parents and living with them when cultures all around the world have multi-generations in the same home and it's totally normal. But things are just more expensive now. Millennials can't afford homes because the prices, I mean, I look at some houses and I'm like, how is this $1 million house? Like it's not even built properly, but things are just, people cannot afford to exist.
I think times are definitely different today. I was just talking to my parents about this, and I was raised more like you, Bert, in that when I hit 17, it was like, you got to go out there and figure it out. They helped me when I really needed it, but for the most part, it was like you were on your own. But with my sisters, who are 10 years younger than me, it was different for them. It was a lot different. And I think some of that is because my parents were doing a little better at that time and they could help more. But I also think another part of that is like when you look at what you have to pay for an apartment now, when you look at what you have to pay to really just get yourself together, it's vastly different than it was when my parents were having to do it.
Yeah, it's not fair for me on one hand to think that because of the cost of living now and the amount of rent, that I am fairly certain he is not getting a job that is going to be paying him over $75,000 acting as soon as he gets out of SCAD. That is not going to happen, right? So he's going to need some help. Now, he can get odd jobs until he gets more gigs. But until that happens, how much support do we give him? And I've got to lose this attitude. Like, I've taught him about grit his entire life. And if he can't take care of himself after college, then it's a disappointment. I have to shake that.
I think you can tell too, like as a parent, you know your kid best. As a good parent, you know your kid best because there is a difference there. And you can look at your child and know, and by child, I mean adult child, and know they're trying their best. Like they're out there, they're working, they're hustling, they're grinding, but they're still needing help to make ends meet. And as a parent, if you can, then you step in. Now, if you take a step back and you look at your child and they're just mooching off you and they're living at home and they're playing video games day in and day out in the basement and they're not getting out there looking for a job, I think it's a case-by-case basis. But as a good parent, you can take a step back and be like, this child deserves my help. This child needs to be nudged more to take more control of their financial stability.
Here's Tammy. Hey, Tammy. Good morning. Thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Good morning. Love the morning show. Love you guys.
Thank you.
My son is 24. He didn't go to college, but he does work full time and works at a church on Sundays part time. So he makes okay money, but he can't afford to live on his own. He pays us $400 a month in rent. He pays his car note, car insurance, cell phone. And if I cook dinner, he can have what I'm cooking, but normally he buys his own little bit of groceries. But rent is too expensive. I was out at 18. There is no way, unless he has 4 roommates, is he going to afford a house or an apartment around here for rent.
Yeah, that's
exactly. And I live in Covington.
Yeah. And that's sort of the exact same situation I was in college and right after college also when I dropped out. I had to live with 4 guys, but that's what we did. You know,
that's what I did as well.
Yeah. So that wasn't even it wasn't a built-in excuse for us back in the day. Like if you had to live with 8 guys, you lived with 8 guys, but it's different now. Hey, Rhonda, good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm old school. Like, I'm 64 years old, and I'm still working at a school. I'm making no money. But I live in Noonan, Georgia, and it's growing so fast. My taxes were off the chain. But a 1-bedroom apartment is $2,000.
Oh, my God.
It's not
that's the lowest you can get, even for any little thing. It was ridiculous. And my son's 21. And he works full time, and he does his best, but he's very shy. He don't have a lot of friends. His dad wants him out. I want him to stay in. You know.
Yeah, and I think you raise a really good. I think you raise a good point. I think Kristen did also. Is that they got to show effort.
Yeah.
You know, like you can. If you're going to struggle, it's because you're out there looking for a job, or you do have a full-time job and you just can't make ends meet, but you are not staying in the house and you are not playing video games and you're not hanging out with all your friends online and not doing anything.
Yeah, you can differentiate between effort and lazy. And if your child is showing effort, hopefully you have the means where you can help them out until they can get solidly on their own 2 feet.
We have a producer here, Amber, still living with her dad.
Yes, I'm in my 30s and I live at home. I mean, I survived Los Angeles for like 10 years. And it was really hard. It's hard to save up because everything is so expensive. When I was a property manager in LA, for a studio apartment, we were looking at $1,300. And parking was not included. Wi-Fi was not included. Everything was separate. It was insane. I came back home expecting maybe a little easier. It is not. But luckily for me, my father understands. He's a bankruptcy attorney, so he knows how much things cost. So he didn't give me too much hard up about that. So yeah, it's tough out there.
It's the Bert Show.
The Bert Show.